The wind howled like a wild animal across the Montana plains, carrying snow so thick that Anna could barely see past her front porch. She pressed her face against the cold window glass, watching the white world outside disappear into nothing. The storm had been going for 3 days now, and she was starting to worry about her cattle. Living alone on this ranch wasn't easy, especially during winter. 6 months ago, everything had been different. Her husband Tom had been there to handle the tough times, to make decisions when things got scary. Now it was just her, fighting against nature and trying to keep everything together. The cabin felt too quiet. The only sounds were the crackling fire and the wind trying to break down her door. Anna wrapped her shawl tighter around her shoulders and walked back to the kitchen. She had been making soup with the last of her vegetables when she first heard it. Horse hooves. At first, she thought the wind was playing tricks on her mind. Who would be crazy enough to travel in weather like this? But the sound got closer and closer until she couldn't ignore it anymore. Someone was really out there. Anna grabbed her late husband's rifle from above the fireplace. Her hands shook a little as she checked if it was loaded. She wasn't scared of people usually, but these were strange times. Desperate men did desperate things, and a woman alone was an easy target. The hoofbeats stopped right outside her door. "Hello, the house," came a man's voice, barely heard over the storm. "I need help." Anna stayed quiet, thinking fast. The voice sounded tired, not threatening. But you never could tell. She had heard stories about outlaws who pretended to be in trouble just to get inside people's homes. "Please, ma'am," the voice called again. "My horse is hurt and I can't see anything in this storm. I'm not looking for trouble." Something in his voice made her believe him. Maybe it was the way he said ma'am so respectfully, or how he sounded more worried about his horse than himself. Anna made her choice. She opened the door just a crack, keeping the rifle ready. "Who are you and what do you want?" A tall figure stood in her doorway, covered in snow from head to toe. She could barely make out his face under his hat, but his horse behind him was clearly struggling. The poor animal was favoring one leg and looked ready to collapse. "Name's Jake, ma'am. Jake Thompson. I was heading south when this storm caught me. My horse threw a shoe about 5 miles back, and now he's going lame. I wouldn't ask, but we'll both freeze to death if we stay out here." Anna looked at the horse again. The animal was shivering badly, and she could see its breath in the cold air. No man would hurt his horse just to trick his way into someone's house. Cowboys loved their horses more than most people. "You armed?" she asked. Jake slowly reached down and pulled a pistol from his belt, holding it out to her. "Yes, ma'am, but you can take it if it makes you feel safer." That gesture decided it for her. A bad man wouldn't give up his gun so easily. Anna opened the door wider and stepped back, still holding her rifle. "Come in then, but move slow and keep your hands where I can see them." Jake stepped inside, bringing a cloud of cold air and snow with him. He was bigger than she had expected, tall and solid, but he moved carefully like he understood her fear. His clothes were good quality but well-worn, the kind a working cowboy would wear. "Thank you, ma'am. I surely appreciate this." He pulled off his hat, showing brown hair and a face that had seen too much sun and wind. There were lines around his eyes, the kind that came from squinting into distant horizons. "What about my horse? He needs shelter too." Anna pointed toward the back of the cabin. "There's a small barn out there. Not much, but it's warm and dry. You can put him there." "I'll pay you for the feed," Jake said quickly. "I'm not looking for charity." She almost smiled at that. Pride was something she understood. "We'll talk about payment later. Right now, let's get that animal taken care of before he freezes." Jake nodded and went back outside. Anna watched from the window as he gently led his limping horse toward the barn. The way he talked to the animal, soft and encouraging, told her a lot about his character. Mean men weren't usually kind to horses. When he came back inside, Jake stood by the door like he wasn't sure if he was welcome. Snow melted off his coat and formed puddles on her floor. "Hang your coat by the fire," Anna said, finally setting down her rifle. "You look half frozen." "Yes, ma'am." "Thank you." He hung up his coat and hat, revealing a simple shirt and vest underneath. Everything about him spoke of a man who lived simply and worked hard for what he had. Anna went back to her soup, stirring it while she thought. Having a stranger in her house felt strange after so many months alone, but it also felt normal somehow, like having another person around was how things were supposed to be. "That smells real good," Jake said quietly. He stayed by the fire warming his hands. "Are you hungry?" she asked. It was just good manners to offer food to a guest, even an unexpected one. I don't want to take your food, ma'am. I know winter's hard and supplies get short. Anna looked at him more carefully. He was trying to be polite, but she could see the hunger in his eyes. When had he last eaten a real meal? I made plenty, she said, which wasn't exactly true. But Tom had always said that food shared was food blessed. Sit down at the table, Jake hesitated. I should tell you, ma'am, I don't have much money. I can work for my keep, though. I'm good with animals and fixing things. What kind of work do you do? Anna asked, ladling soup into 2 bowls. Whatever needs doing. I've worked cattle, fixed fences, broken horses. I can hunt and fish, too. I'm not afraid of hard work. Anna set a bowl in front of him and watched as he ate. He had good table manners, but ate like someone who wasn't sure where his next meal was coming from. She found herself wondering about his story. What made a man wander alone in winter like this? Where were you heading? She asked. South, maybe Texas, looking for ranch work. Jake paused, spoon halfway to his mouth. What about you, ma'am? This is a big place for one person. Anna felt her chest tighten. It wasn't always just me. Jake nodded slowly, understanding without her having to explain. I'm sorry for your loss. The simple words hit her harder than all the fancy speeches people had given at Tom's funeral. This stranger somehow understood her pain without making a big show of it. Winter's the hardest time, Jake continued. Everything feels bigger when you're facing it alone. Anna looked across the table at this unexpected guest. For the first time in months, she didn't feel quite so alone. It was dangerous thinking, she knew. She couldn't start depending on someone who would be gone as soon as the storm passed. But for now, for tonight, it was enough to have another voice in the cabin and someone to share her simple meal with. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside, the fire burned warm and bright. The morning sun broke through the clouds, turning the snow-covered world into something magical. Anna stood at her kitchen window, watching Jake tend to his horse in the barn. Even from here, she could see the gentle way he moved around the animal, checking its injured hoof. She had slept better last night than she had in months. Maybe it was knowing someone else was nearby, or maybe it was just being too tired to lie awake thinking about all her problems. Either way, she felt more rested than she had since Tom died. Jake came back to the house carrying a bucket of milk from her cow. Anna had forgotten all about milking yesterday, too worried about the storm to think straight. Thought you might need this, he said, setting the bucket on her kitchen table. Your cow was pretty full. She needed milking bad. Thank you. Anna felt embarrassed. A good ranch wife never forgot about milking. But then again, she was still learning how to do everything alone. I had other things on my mind yesterday. Jake nodded like he understood. Mind if I take a look at your other animals while I'm here? Storm like that can cause problems. Anna hesitated. Letting him help felt like admitting she couldn't handle things herself. But the truth was she needed all the help she could get. The ranch was bigger than one person could manage, especially during winter. I suppose that would be helpful, she said finally. While Jake went to check on her cattle, Anna made breakfast. She found herself cooking more than usual, making biscuits and bacon instead of her usual simple meal. It felt good to cook for someone again. When Jake came back, his face was serious. You've got a problem with your fence on the north side. Storm knocked down a whole section. Your cattle could wander off if we don't fix it soon. Anna's heart sank. Fence repairs cost money she didn't have, and she didn't know how to do the work herself. Tom had always handled that kind of thing. How much fence are we talking about? She asked. Maybe 50 feet. It's not too bad, but it needs doing soon. Jake sat down at the table and accepted the plate she offered him. I could fix it for you if you've got materials. I can't afford to pay much, Anna said quietly. I wasn't asking for pay. You gave me shelter when I needed it. This is just returning the favor. Anna studied his face, looking for some sign that he was lying or had other motives. But Jake just ate his breakfast calmly, like offering free labor was the most natural thing in the world. Why would you help me? She asked. You don't even know me. Jake was quiet for a moment, cutting his bacon into small pieces. I know what it's like to be alone and struggling. Someone helped me once when I needed it. Now I'm helping you. What happened to you? Anna asked, then immediately regretted it. I'm sorry. That's not my business. It's all right. Jake looked out the window toward the mountains. I was married once. Had a little spread down in Colorado. Lost everything in a bad winter 3 years back. My wife got sick and I couldn't afford a doctor. She died, and I couldn't face staying there anymore. Anna felt her throat tighten. She knew that kind of loss, the way it could hollow out your whole world. I'm sorry. Like you said, it's the past. Jake's voice was steady, but Anna could hear the pain underneath. Point is, I know how hard it is to keep going when you're by yourself. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Anna found herself stealing glances at this stranger, who somehow understood her situation so well. He wasn't handsome in the way the men in town were, all cleaned up and proper. But there was something solid about him, something that made her feel safer just having him around. Tell me about your husband, Jake said suddenly. If you want to, I mean. Anna twisted her wedding ring, a habit she'd developed since Tom's death. He was a good man. Worked hard, treated me well. We had plans for this place, wanted to build it into something special. What happened to him? Accident with the cattle. A bull turned mean and caught him in the open. By the time I found him, Anna stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Jake reached across the table and briefly touched her hand. The gesture was quick and respectful, but it sent warmth through Anna's whole body. That's a hard way to lose someone, he said. Sudden like that? Anna nodded, not trusting her voice to stay steady. She had told this story to neighbors and family, but somehow telling Jake felt different. He listened without trying to make her feel better or offering empty words about God's plan. How long ago? Jake asked. 6 months next week. Anna pulled her hand back and folded it with the other in her lap. People keep telling me it'll get easier, but it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't get easier, Jake said quietly. It just gets different. You learn to carry it better. Anna looked up at him, surprised by his honesty. Everyone else tried to comfort her with promises that time healed all wounds. Jake was the first person to tell her the truth. Do you still miss her? Your wife? Anna asked. Every day. But missing someone and being stuck in the past are different things. She wouldn't want me to stop living just because she couldn't be here anymore. Anna thought about that while she cleared the breakfast dishes. Would Tom want her to stay frozen in grief forever? Or would he want her to find a way to be happy again? I don't know how to move forward, she admitted. This ranch, everything we built together. It feels wrong to change anything. Jake helped her carry dishes to the wash basin. Maybe you don't have to change everything. Maybe you just have to find new reasons to keep going with what you've got. Anna looked around the kitchen Tom had built for her, at the table where they'd shared so many meals together. For months, this place had felt like a museum of her dead marriage. But with Jake here, it felt like a home again. I should get started on that fence, Jake said, putting on his coat. Storm's over and the work won't do itself. Anna watched him walk toward the barn, her mind spinning with thoughts she wasn't ready to face. Jake was a kind man who understood loss, but he was also a stranger who would leave as soon as his horse was healthy. Getting attached to him would only lead to more pain. But as she washed the breakfast dishes, Anna found herself humming a song she hadn't sung since Tom died. Having another person around, someone to cook for and talk to, made everything feel lighter somehow. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe she didn't have to change everything about her life. Maybe she just needed to find new reasons to keep living it. Anna woke up to the sound of hammering. For a moment, she felt confused. Nobody had made noise like that around her place since Tom died. Then she remembered. Jake was here, fixing her fence. She dressed quickly and went outside to find him already hard at work. He had found Tom's tools in the barn and was replacing the broken fence posts with new ones he'd cut from fallen trees. You're up early, Anna called out, walking toward him with a cup of coffee. Old habit, Jake said, accepting the coffee gratefully. My pa always said the early bird catches the worm. Anna watched him work, impressed by his skill. He handled Tom's tools like he'd been using them his whole life, measuring twice and cutting once, just like her husband used to do. You're good at this, she said. I've built my share of fences. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead despite the cold morning air. A man picks up all kinds of skills when he's wandering around looking for work. Is that what you've been doing? Wandering around? Jake hammered in another nail before answering. For about 3 years now. Never stayed anywhere longer than a season. Always figured I'd know the right place when I found it. Anna felt something flutter in her chest at those words, but she pushed the feeling away. Jake was just being friendly. She couldn't read more into it than that. I'll start on breakfast, she said, backing toward the house. Anna? Jake called after her. It was the first time he'd used her name, and she liked the sound of it in his voice. Thank you for the coffee. She nodded and hurried inside. Her cheeks warm despite the cold air. What was wrong with her? She was acting like a schoolgirl with her first crush. While she cooked, Anna watched Jake through the window. He worked steadily but took time to pet her cow when she wandered over to investigate. He even talked to the chickens when they got in his way, gently shooing them aside instead of getting angry. Tom had been patient with animals too. It was one of the things she'd loved about him. After breakfast, Anna decided to help with the fence work. She'd never done it before, but she could hold boards steady and hand Jake tools when he needed them. "You don't have to do this," Jake said when she appeared with work gloves on. "This is heavy work." "It's my fence," Anna replied. "Besides, I need to learn how to do these things myself." Jake smiled at that. "Fair enough. Can you hold this post steady while I nail it in place?" Working together felt natural. Jake was patient when Anna made mistakes, showing her the right way to hold things without making her feel stupid. They fell into an easy rhythm, Jake doing the heavy work while Anna helped with the smaller tasks. "Tell me about this place," Jake said as they worked. "How long have you been here?" "Tom and I bought it 5 years ago," Anna said, steadying another post. "We wanted to build something that would last, something we could pass down to our children someday." "You don't have kids?" Anna's hands tightened on the post. "We tried, but it never happened for us." Tom said maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Jake nodded without saying anything. Anna appreciated that he didn't offer empty comfort or suggest that children might still come someday. At 32, she knew her chances were getting smaller each year. "What about you?" Anna asked. "Did you and your wife have children?" "We were trying when she got sick," Jake said quietly. "Probably for the best, though. A child shouldn't have to watch his mother die like that." They worked in comfortable silence after that, both lost in their own memories. But somehow sharing the sadness made it feel lighter instead of heavier. Around midday, Anna went inside to make lunch. When she came back outside, she found Jake talking to a man on horseback. The stranger looked rough with dirty clothes and mean eyes. "This your place, lady?" the man asked when he saw Anna. "It is," Anna replied, moving closer to Jake. Something about the stranger made her nervous. "Name's Bill Carter. I'm looking for strays that might have wandered over here during the storm. Mind if I check your cattle?" Anna glanced at Jake, who was studying the stranger carefully. "What do your cattle look like?" Jake asked. "Brown and white, mostly. Got my brand on them, of course." Carter's eyes shifted away from Jake's steady gaze. "I haven't seen any strange cattle," Anna said. "And I know all my animals." Carter's expression turned ugly. "You sure about that? Sometimes people see cattle wandering around and figure they're free for the taking." Jake stepped forward and Anna could see his whole body tense up. "That sounds like you're calling the lady a thief." "I'm not calling nobody nothing," Carter said, but his hand moved toward his gun. "I'm just looking for my property." "And you've been told there's nothing here for you," Jake replied. His voice stayed calm, but Anna could hear steel underneath it. "Time for you to move on." Carter looked between Jake and Anna, clearly trying to decide if it was worth pushing the matter. Finally, he spat in the dirt and turned his horse around. "I'll be back," he said over his shoulder, "and next time I might bring some friends." Anna watched the man ride away, fear crawling up her spine. She'd heard stories about rustlers who used the chaos of winter storms to steal cattle and claimed they were just looking for strays. Who was that really? Jake asked once Carter was out of sight. "I've never seen him before," Anna said, "but I've heard talk in town about cattle thieves working this area. They wait for bad weather, then claim any cattle they find are theirs." Jake looked thoughtful. "Your cattle all branded?" "Yes, with Tom's mark. But that man didn't ask to see brands. A real rancher would want to check brands first thing." "Exactly." Jake picked up his hammer and went back to work on the fence. "We need to get this finished today. If men like that are around, you need your property secured." Anna felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. She'd been so focused on grief and loneliness that she'd forgotten about other dangers. A woman alone was an easy target for all kinds of men with bad intentions. "Jake?" she said quietly. "What if he comes back?" Jake stopped working and looked at her directly. "Then we'll handle it. You're not alone anymore, Anna. Not as long as I'm here." The promise in his words made Anna's chest tight with emotion she wasn't ready to name. She'd been taking care of herself for months, but having someone offer to stand with her felt like a gift she didn't deserve. They finished the fence work as the sun started to set. Jake insisted on walking the entire property line, checking for other weak spots that might need attention. Anna walked with him, learning to see her land through his experienced eyes. "You've got a good place here," Jake said as they headed back to the house. "Good water, decent grazing, close enough to town but far enough away to have privacy." "Tom picked it out," Anna said. "He had an eye for land. Smart man. This place could support a nice herd with proper management." Anna glanced at Jake sideways. Was he thinking about staying longer, or was he just making conversation? As they reached the cabin, Anna realized something had changed during their day of shared work. Jake didn't feel like a stranger anymore. He felt like a partner, someone who understood both the land and the work it took to make it productive. That night, as they ate dinner by lamplight, Anna found herself really looking at Jake, not just as a guest or hired hand, but as a man. He had strong hands marked by years of hard work, kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled, and a quiet confidence that made her feel safe. For the first time since Tom died, Anna let herself imagine what it might be like to share her life with someone again. The thought scared her, but it also filled her with a warmth she'd forgotten existed. 3 days after the fence was fixed, another storm rolled in from the north. Anna watched the dark clouds gathering and felt her stomach tighten with worry. This one looked even worse than the last. "Looks like we're in for another rough night," Jake said, coming up beside her on the porch. He'd been chopping wood all morning, building up their supply in case they got snowed in again. "I hate winter storms," Anna admitted. "They make everything feel so trapped." Jake nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Your husband died during winter?" Anna was surprised by the direct question, but somehow it didn't feel intrusive coming from Jake. "Late fall, just as the cold weather was starting. I spent that whole first winter feeling like the snow was burying me alive. And now?" Anna looked at him, this man who had appeared out of nowhere and somehow made everything feel different. "Now I'm not sure what I feel." The first snowflakes started falling as they went inside. Jake built up the fire while Anna prepared dinner, both of them moving around the small cabin with an ease that came from days of shared routine. As the storm grew stronger outside, Anna found herself very aware of Jake's presence. The cabin that had felt too big and empty for months now seemed small and intimate with both of them in it. "Tell me about before," Anna said as they sat by the fire after dinner. "Before your wife died. What was your life like?" Jake stared into the flames for a long moment. "Peaceful, I guess. We had a small place, just enough cattle to make a living. Mary liked to plant flowers around the house. Said they made the place feel more like home." "Mary," Anna repeated softly. "That's a pretty name. She was a pretty woman, inside and out." Jake's voice was quiet, full of old pain. "We were happy. Really happy. I thought we'd grow old together on that little ranch." Anna felt a stab of something that might have been jealousy, which made no sense at all. Mary was dead and Anna had no claim on Jake anyway. "What changed?" she asked. "After she died, I mean." "Everything," Jake said simply. "I couldn't stand being there without her. Every morning I'd wake up and reach for her and she wouldn't be there. Every meal felt wrong. Every plan we'd made felt like a lie." Anna's throat tightened. She knew exactly what he meant. "So you left, sold everything and took to the road. Figured if I kept moving, the pain couldn't catch up with me." Jake smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Took me 3 years to figure out you can't outrun grief." "What made you realize that?" Jake looked at her directly, his gaze intense in the firelight. "Meeting you," Anna's breath caught. "What do you mean?" "Being here in this house with you. It's the first time since Mary died that I've felt like I was living instead of just surviving." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Anna felt her heart racing, torn between hope and fear. "Jake," she whispered, not sure what she wanted to say. He moved closer to her on the sofa, close enough that she could smell the wood smoke in his hair and see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. "Anna," he said softly, "I need you to know I'm not trying to replace what you had with your husband. What we had with our spouses was special and nothing can change that." "Then what are you trying to do?" Anna asked, her voice barely audible over the wind outside. "I'm trying to find the courage to start living again. And I'm hoping maybe you want the same thing." Anna felt tears spring to her eyes. Part of her wanted to lean into Jake's warmth, to let herself feel something besides grief and loneliness. But another part of her felt like she'd be betraying Tom's memory. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "It feels wrong." Jake reached out slowly and took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "What feels wrong?" "Being happy?" or being alive? Both, Anna admitted. Tom and I made promises to each other. Till death do us part and all that. But what comes after death? What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? You're supposed to live it, Jake said gently. Tom loved you, right? Anna nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Then he'd want you to be happy. He wouldn't want you to spend the rest of your life mourning him. How can you be so sure? Anna asked. Because if I died tomorrow, I'd want you to find someone who could love you the way you deserve. I wouldn't want you to be alone for the next 40 years just because I couldn't be here. The simple honesty of his words broke something open inside Anna's chest. She'd been so focused on staying faithful to Tom's memory that she'd forgotten he'd loved her enough to want her happiness above all else. I'm scared, Anna admitted. What if I let myself feel something for you and then you leave? What if this is just about being trapped together in a storm? Jake was quiet for a long time, still holding her hand. Outside, the wind howled and snow pelted against the windows. I can't promise I'll never leave, he said finally. And I can't promise this isn't just about the storm. But I can promise that what I'm feeling for you is real. And I think what you're feeling for me is real too. Anna looked into his eyes and saw her own fears and hopes reflected there. Jake was as scared as she was, as uncertain about what came next. But he was brave enough to admit it, brave enough to reach for something good despite the risk of losing it. What am I feeling? Anna asked, testing him. Jake smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. You're feeling guilty for wanting to be happy again. You're feeling scared that caring about me means forgetting about Tom. And you're feeling something warm and alive that you haven't felt since he died. Anna stared at him, amazed by how well he understood her heart. How do you know all that? Because I'm feeling the same things about you and Mary. The honesty of his confession made Anna's eyes fill with tears. Without thinking, she reached up and touched his face, feeling the roughness of his beard against her palm. Jake, she whispered, not sure what she was asking for. He leaned into her touch, his eyes closing briefly. I know, Anna. I know. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin something warm and fragile was growing between them. Anna felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, terrified to jump, but knowing she couldn't stay where she was forever. Maybe Jake was right. Maybe living again wasn't a betrayal of the past. Maybe it was the only way to honor the love that had brought her this far. The storm outside grew worse as the night went on. By the time Anna and Jake went to bed, the wind was howling so loud it sounded like wild animals circling the cabin. Snow piled up against the windows, and the temperature dropped until frost formed on the inside of the glass. Anna lay in her bed listening to the storm and thinking about Jake sleeping on the sofa in the next room. Everything he'd said by the fire kept running through her mind. The way he'd looked at her, the gentle touch of his hand, the honesty in his voice when he talked about wanting to live again. She'd been alone in this bed for 6 months, and tonight was the first time she'd been truly aware of that loneliness. Before Jake arrived, the emptiness had just been part of her grief. Now it felt like something that could be changed. Around midnight, Anna heard Jake moving around in the main room. She listened to his footsteps and the sound of him adding wood to the fire. Then everything went quiet again, but Anna couldn't sleep. The cold was getting worse, seeping through the cabin walls despite the fire. Her bedroom was the farthest from the fireplace, and she could feel the chill settling into her bones. She wrapped every blanket she had around herself, but it didn't help. The cold was the kind that came from inside as much as outside, the kind that no amount of cloth could fix. Anna lay there shivering for another hour before she finally gave up trying to sleep. She needed to get warm, and the only real heat in the cabin was coming from the fireplace in the main room. She wrapped her heaviest shawl around her nightgown and quietly opened her bedroom door. The main room was warmer, but not by much. The fire had burned down to glowing coals, and she could see her breath in the air. Jake was lying on the sofa under a pile of blankets, but she could tell he wasn't asleep either. His breathing was too careful, too aware. Anna, he said softly. You all right? I'm cold, Anna admitted. Too cold to sleep. Jake sat up, and Anna could see him looking at her in the dim light from the fire. Come closer to the fire. I'll build it up. Anna moved closer to the fireplace while Jake added more wood to the coals. Soon flames were dancing again, throwing warm light around the room. But even standing right next to the fire, Anna couldn't stop shivering. Better? Jake asked. Anna shook her head. It's not just the cold from outside. It's been cold inside me for so long, I don't think I remember how to be warm anymore. Jake looked at her for a long moment, understanding everything she wasn't saying. Anna, I know, she whispered. I know what I'm saying. They stood there looking at each other across the small space between them, both knowing they were at a turning point. Anna could go back to her cold bedroom and try to sleep alone, or she could take a step toward something that terrified and excited her in equal measure. Will you keep me warm tonight, Cowboy? Anna asked, her voice so quiet it was almost lost in the sound of the fire. The words hung in the air between them like a bridge Anna wasn't sure she was brave enough to cross. Jake's eyes went wide and she could see him struggling with the same fears and hopes that were tearing her apart inside. Anna, Jake said carefully, are you sure? Because once we cross this line, there's no going back. Anna's heart was beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. I don't want to go back. I'm tired of being cold and alone and half dead inside. Jake moved toward her slowly, like he was approaching a wild animal that might run away. What about Tom? What about feeling guilty? Tom's gone, Anna said, and for the first time saying it didn't feel like a knife in her chest. I'll always love him, but he's gone. And you're here. Jake reached out and touched her face, his rough fingers gentle against her skin. Are you sure this is what you want? Instead of answering with words, Anna stepped closer to him, closing the distance between them. She could feel the warmth of his body, smell the scent of wood smoke and leather that clung to his skin. I'm sure, she whispered. Jake's arms came around her then, pulling her against his chest. Anna felt his warmth seeping through her thin nightgown, melting the ice that had been frozen around her heart for so many months. Anna, Jake murmured against her hair. Sweet Anna. She looked up at him, seeing her own wonder reflected in his eyes. This man who had appeared out of a snowstorm and somehow brought her back to life. I never thought I'd feel this way again, Anna whispered. Neither did I, Jake replied. I thought that part of me died with Mary. Are we crazy? Anna asked. Falling for each other so fast? Jake smiled, the same real smile that had stopped her heart earlier. Maybe, but sometimes crazy is the only thing that makes sense. Anna reached up and touched his lips with her fingertips, marveling at how right this felt. I don't want to think anymore tonight. I don't want to worry about right and wrong or what people would say. I just want to feel alive again. Then don't think, Jake said, catching her hand and pressing it flat against his chest. Just feel. Anna could feel his heart beating under her palm, strong and steady and real. This wasn't her imagination or a dream brought on by loneliness and cold. This was a good man who understood her grief and wanted to help her heal. Jake leaned down and kissed her then, soft and careful at first, then deeper when Anna kissed him back. It had been so long since anyone had touched her with tenderness, so long since she'd felt wanted and cherished. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Anna felt dizzy with the rush of emotions and sensations she'd forgotten existed. The fire's getting low again, Jake said softly. Anna looked at the dying flames, then back at Jake's face in the golden light. Then we'll have to keep each other warm. Jake's eyes searched her face one more time, making sure she meant what she was saying. Whatever he saw there must have convinced him because he smiled and pulled her closer. Come here then, he whispered. Anna let him lead her to the sofa where he'd been sleeping. The blankets were still warm from his body, and when he pulled them around both of them, Anna finally stopped shivering. For the first time in 6 months, she wasn't cold. For the first time since Tom died, she felt completely alive. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the cabin, Anna had found the warmth she'd been searching for. Not just the heat of another body, but the deeper warmth of connection and hope and the promise of something beautiful growing between them. As Jake held her close and whispered her name like a prayer, Anna finally understood what it meant to live again. Anna woke up slowly, aware of warmth and the scent of a man's skin before she fully remembered where she was. For just a moment, her sleepy mind thought it was Tom beside her. Then reality crashed back and she remembered everything. Jake's arm was around her waist, his breathing steady and deep against her neck. They were still on the sofa, wrapped in blankets, and pale morning light was filtering through the frost-covered windows. Anna lay very still, not wanting to wake Jake, not wanting to face what the morning would bring. Last night had felt like a dream, like something that happened to other people in stories. In the cold light of day, it felt too real and too complicated. What had she done? The guilt hit her like a physical blow. She had shared her body with a man who wasn't her husband, had felt pleasure and connection with someone she'd known for less than a week. The wedding ring on her finger felt heavy as lead. Anna carefully slipped out of Jake's arms and gathered her clothes. She needed to get dressed, needed to think, needed to figure out what to say when Jake woke up. In her bedroom, Anna looked at herself in the small mirror above her washstand. Her hair was tangled, her lips still swollen from Jake's kisses. She looked like a woman who had been thoroughly loved, and the sight made her stomach turn with shame. What would Tom think if he could see her now? What would the people in town say if they knew? What would the preacher say about a widow who took up with a drifter after only knowing him for days? Anna dressed quickly in her most practical clothes, as if wearing her everyday work dress could somehow erase what had happened. She braided her hair severely and pinned it back, trying to look like the respectable widow she was supposed to be. When she came back to the main room, Jake was sitting up on the sofa, fully dressed. He looked at her carefully, and Anna could see him reading her mood in her stiff posture and averted eyes. "Good morning," Jake said quietly. "Good morning," Anna replied, not looking at him. She went straight to the kitchen and started making coffee with jerky, mechanical movements. "Anna," Jake said, getting up from the sofa. "Look at me." Anna kept her eyes on the coffee pot. "I need to get breakfast started. There's work to do today." Jake moved closer, but he didn't touch her. "Anna, please, talk to me. What do you want me to say?" Anna asked, finally turning to face him. "That last night was wonderful. That I don't regret it? Do you regret it?" Jake asked. Anna looked into his kind eyes and felt her heart break a little. "I don't know what I feel. Everything is so confused." Jake nodded slowly. "I understand. You're thinking about your husband." "I'm thinking about a lot of things," Anna said. "About what kind of woman takes a stranger to her bed after knowing him for 5 days. About what people would say if they knew. About whether I'm dishonoring Tom's memory." "And what conclusions have you reached?" Jake asked. Anna turned away from him again, unable to bear the gentle understanding in his voice. "That I made a mistake. That we both got carried away by the storm and the isolation and loneliness." Jake was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful and controlled. "Is that really what you think? That last night was just about loneliness?" Anna's hands shook as she poured coffee into 2 cups. "What else could it be? We barely know each other." "I know you're brave enough to run this ranch by yourself," Jake said. "I know you're kind to animals and generous with strangers. I know you loved your husband deeply and you're struggling with feeling guilty for being alive when he's not." Anna felt tears spring to her eyes at the accuracy of his words. "That doesn't mean that we should have done what we did." "Why not?" Jake asked. "Because some people might judge you? Because you think your husband would disapprove?" "Yes." Anna whirled around to face him. "Because I made promises to Tom. Because I'm supposed to be mourning him, not finding comfort with another man." Jake stepped closer, his eyes intense. "And how long are you supposed to mourn? A year? 5 years? The rest of your life?" "I don't know," Anna cried. "I don't know how any of this works. All I know is that I feel like I've betrayed him." "Anna," Jake said gently, reaching out to touch her arm, "you haven't betrayed anyone. You're a living woman with needs and feelings. Tom's gone, but you're not." Anna pulled away from his touch. Please don't make this harder than it already is." Jake's hand fell to his side, and Anna saw something close off in his expression. "What are you saying?" Anna took a shaky breath. "I'm saying that last night was a mistake. We were both vulnerable and lonely, and we let our emotions get the better of us. But it can't happen again." "Because you don't want it to happen again? Or because you think you shouldn't want it to happen again?" The question hit too close to home. Anna did want it to happen again. She wanted to wake up in Jake's arms every morning, wanted to share her meals and her work and her bed with him, but wanting something didn't make it right. "Does it matter?" Anna asked tiredly. Jake looked at her for a long moment, and Anna could see him making a decision. "Maybe you're right. Maybe we did get carried away by the circumstances." Something inside Anna's chest twisted painfully at his words, but she forced herself to nod. "I think we did." "In that case," Jake said, his voice becoming formal and distant, "I should probably move on. My horse is healed up and the storm's passed. You don't need me here anymore." Anna felt like he'd slapped her. "You're leaving? Isn't that what you want?" Jake asked. "For things to go back to the way they were before I showed up?" Anna stared at him, realizing that she'd gotten exactly what she'd asked for and hating how it felt. Yes, I think that would be best." Jake nodded curtly. "I'll pack my things and be gone within the hour." He turned and started gathering his few possessions, and Anna watched him with growing panic. This was what she wanted, she told herself. This was the right thing to do. So why did it feel like she was making the biggest mistake of her life? "Jake," Anna said suddenly. He paused in his packing and looked at her hopefully. Anna opened her mouth to say, "What, that she'd changed her mind? That she wanted him to stay? That last night had been the most alive she'd felt since Tom died?" Instead, she heard herself say, "Thank you for fixing the fence and helping with the cattle. I appreciate it." The hope in Jake's eyes died. "You're welcome." Anna watched him finish packing, her heart breaking with every item he folded and put away. Part of her wanted to run to him, to tell him she was scared and confused, but that she cared about him. The other part of her, the part that felt guilty and ashamed, kept her feet planted firmly on the kitchen floor. When Jake was ready to leave, he stood by the door with his saddlebags over his shoulder. "Anna, yes? For what it's worth, I don't think last night was a mistake. I think it was two people finding comfort and connection in a hard world. There's nothing wrong with that." Anna felt tears spill down her cheeks. "Jake, take care of yourself, Anna. You deserve to be happy." And then he was gone, leaving Anna alone in her cabin with nothing but the memory of his warmth and the terrible certainty that she'd just made the worst decision of her life. 3 days after Jake left, Anna fell sick. It started as a small cough on the morning she was trying to fix a broken water pipe. She ignored it, pushing through her work like she'd been doing since Tom died. But by evening, the cough had gotten worse and she felt hot and shaky. Anna told herself it was just a cold. She made herself some tea with honey and went to bed early, sure she'd feel better in the morning. But morning brought fever and chills that left her barely able to get out of bed. When she tried to milk the cow, she got dizzy and had to sit down in the snow. The simple task that had taken her 15 minutes a few days ago now felt impossible. By the second day, Anna knew she was in real trouble. She couldn't keep food down, and every breath felt like fire in her chest. Pneumonia. She'd seen it before, knew how quickly it could turn deadly, especially for someone living alone. She managed to drag herself to the kitchen and write a note asking for help, thinking she could get to town somehow. But when she tried to saddle her horse, her legs gave out completely. She barely made it back to the cabin before collapsing. Anna spent the next day drifting in and out of fevered sleep, her mind playing tricks on her. Sometimes she thought Tom was there, talking to her in his gentle voice. Sometimes she was a child again, sick in her mother's house. And sometimes, in her clearest moments, she thought about Jake. Where was he now? Had he found work somewhere? Was he thinking about her at all, or had he put their brief time together out of his mind? Anna regretted sending him away more with each passing hour. Not just because she needed help now, but because she missed him. She missed his quiet strength, his understanding smile, the way he made her feel less alone in the world. On the 4th day, Anna was too weak to get out of bed at all. She lay there listening to her animals outside, knowing they needed care she couldn't give them. Her mouth was dry as dust, but she didn't have the strength to get water. This was how she was going to die, Anna realized with startling clarity. Alone in her bed, too proud and scared to accept help when it was offered. Tom would be so disappointed in her. As the sun started to set, Anna heard something that might have been a fever dream. Horse hooves outside her cabin. Then a voice calling her name. "Anna! Anna, are you in there?" Jake, but that was impossible. Jake was long gone, probably hundreds of miles away by now. The front door opened and Anna heard boots on her wooden floor. "Anna." Jake's voice was closer now, worried. "Where are you?" "Here." Anna tried to call out, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. A moment later, Jake appeared in her bedroom doorway. Anna blinked hard, sure she was hallucinating. But no, it was really him, looking travel-worn and concerned. "Jesus, Anna," Jake breathed, rushing to her bedside. "How long have you been sick?" 4 days, Anna managed to croak. "Maybe 5. Hard to tell." Jake pressed his hand to her forehead, and Anna could see the worry deepen in his eyes. "You're burning up. Have you been eating? Drinking water?" Anna shook her head slightly. Everything hurt too much to explain. Jake disappeared from the room and Anna heard him moving around the cabin. Soon he was back with water and a cool cloth. He helped her sit up enough to drink, supporting her with one strong arm while holding the cup to her lips with the other. "Easy," Jake murmured, "just small sips." The water felt like heaven on Anna's dry throat. When she'd had enough, Jake laid her back down and placed the cool cloth on her forehead. "Why?" Anna whispered. "Why did you come back?" Jake smoothed her sweaty hair away from her face. "I got 20 miles south of here and couldn't stop thinking about that rustler who came by. Bill Carter. Something about him didn't sit right with me." Anna tried to focus on his words through the fever haze. "You came back because of him?" "I came back because I was worried about you," Jake said simply. "I shouldn't have left you alone, Anna. Not with men like that around and not when you were still figuring things out." "I told you to go," Anna said. "I know. And I should have ignored you." Jake's voice was gentle but firm. Sometimes people push away the very thing they need most. Anna felt tears leaking from her eyes. "I was so scared of what? Of caring about you. Of betraying Tom's memory. Of what people would think." Anna coughed, the effort making her chest ache. "And now I'm going to die alone anyway." "You're not going to die," Jake said fiercely. "And you're definitely not alone. I'm here now and I'm not leaving again." "You don't understand," Anna said weakly. "I sent you away because I thought it was wrong to feel something for you. Because I thought Tom wouldn't approve." Jake was quiet for a moment, still stroking her hair. "What do you think now?" Anna closed her eyes, too tired to keep them open. "Now I think Tom would be angry at me for being such a fool. He always said life was too short to waste on fear. He sounds like a wise man. He was. He would have liked you, I think." Jake smiled. The first real smile Anna had seen from him since he'd returned. "I would have liked him too." Anna drifted off to sleep then, but it was different from the restless, fevered sleep she'd been having. This was peaceful, knowing Jake was there watching over her. Over the next few days, Jake barely left her side. He made soup and coaxed her to eat it spoonful by spoonful. He kept cool cloths on her forehead and helped her drink water every few minutes. He took care of her animals and kept the fire burning. When Anna's fever broke on the third night, she woke to find Jake asleep in a chair beside her bed, his hand still holding hers. The sight of him there, rumpled and exhausted from caring for her, made Anna's heart swell with something she finally recognized. Love. She was in love with this good, stubborn man who had refused to abandon her even when she'd tried to push him away. "Jake," Anna whispered. His eyes opened immediately, alert and concerned. "How do you feel?" "Better," Anna said, and meant it. "Much better." Jake felt her forehead and smiled with relief. "Fever's broken. You're going to be all right." Anna squeezed his hand. "Thanks to you." "If you hadn't come back—" "But I did come back," Jake said firmly. "And I'm not leaving again unless you tell me you don't want me here." Anna looked into his tired, caring eyes and made her choice. "I want you here, Jake. I was a fool to send you away." "You were scared," Jake said gently. "There's a difference." "I'm still scared," Anna admitted. "But I'm more scared of losing you than I am of what people might think." Jake leaned down and kissed her forehead softly. "Then we'll figure it out together. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Anna nodded, finally feeling like she could breathe properly for the first time since Jake had left. He had come back for her. Despite everything she'd said, despite how she'd pushed him away, he had come back. That had to mean something. That had to mean everything. Spring came slowly to Montana that year, but when it finally arrived, it brought more than just melting snow and green grass. It brought new possibilities. Anna stood on her porch watching Jake work with the cattle in the far pasture. He'd been staying in the barn since her recovery from pneumonia, giving her space to think and heal while still being close enough to help with the ranch work. 3 weeks had passed since her fever broke, and Anna had spent every day of those weeks watching Jake and falling more in love with him. The way he talked gently to the animals, the way he fixed things without being asked, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching, all of it made her heart flutter like a schoolgirl's. But they hadn't talked about what came next. They worked together during the day, shared meals and conversation in the evenings, but Jake slept in the barn and never pushed for more than Anna seemed ready to give. Anna knew he was waiting for her to decide what she wanted. The question was, did she finally have the courage to choose happiness over fear? "Morning, Anna," called a voice from the road. Anna turned to see her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, riding up on her old mare. The older woman had been Tom's friend long before Anna married him, and she'd always been kind but protective of Tom's memory. "Morning, Mrs. Patterson," Anna replied, walking down to meet her. "What brings you out this way?" Mrs. Patterson glanced toward the pasture where Jake was working. "Heard you had help around the place. Thought I'd come see for myself." Anna felt her cheeks warm. News traveled fast in their small community, and she'd been expecting questions about Jake's presence on her ranch. "His name is Jake Thompson," Anna said carefully. "He's been helping with the spring work. Been here quite a while, hasn't he?" Mrs. Patterson asked, but her tone wasn't judgmental. She sounded more curious than disapproving. "Yes, he has." Mrs. Patterson studied Anna's face for a long moment. "You look better than you have in months, child. Got some color back in your cheeks." Anna blinked in surprise. She'd expected criticism, not compliments. "I've been feeling better," Anna admitted. "Good. Tom wouldn't have wanted you wasting away with grief." Mrs. Patterson looked toward Jake again. "That man of yours know how to handle cattle?" "He's very good with them," Anna said, then caught herself. "He's not. I mean, he's just helping out." Mrs. Patterson smiled knowingly. "Anna, honey, I've been married for 43 years. I know what a woman looks like when she's fallen in love." Anna felt her face burn with embarrassment. "Mrs. Patterson, don't be ashamed, child. Tom's been gone 8 months now. That's long enough for a young woman to start thinking about the future." Anna stared at her neighbor, hardly believing what she was hearing. "You don't think it's too soon? You don't think I'm dishonoring Tom's memory?" Mrs. Patterson laughed softly. "Honey, Tom Miller was one of the best men I ever knew, and because he was such a good man, he'd want you to be happy. He married you because he loved you, not because he wanted you to spend the rest of your life alone." Anna felt tears spring to her eyes. "I've been so confused. I feel guilty for caring about Jake, but I also feel guilty for being miserable all the time." "That's natural," Mrs. Patterson said gently. "But let me ask you this. If Jake died tomorrow, would you want him to spend the rest of his life mourning you, or would you want him to find love again?" The question hit Anna like a lightning bolt. "I'd want him to be happy." "Exactly. And Tom felt the same way about you." Mrs. Patterson reached over and patted Anna's hand. "Don't let fear rob you of a second chance at happiness, child. Those don't come along very often." After Mrs. Patterson left, Anna sat on her porch thinking about their conversation. Could it really be that simple? Could loving Jake be a way of honoring Tom's memory instead of betraying it? That evening, as Anna and Jake sat by the fire after dinner, she found herself really looking at him. Not just as the man who had helped her through the winter, but as the man she wanted to build a future with. "Jake?" Anna said quietly. "Yes?" Anna took a deep breath and reached for her wedding ring. She'd been wearing it every day since Tom died, unable to imagine taking it off. But now, slowly, she slipped it from her finger. Jake watched her without saying anything, understanding the significance of the gesture. "I've been thinking about what you said that night during the storm," Anna said, holding the ring in her palm. "About learning to carry grief better instead of just trying to make it go away." Jake nodded. "What have you decided?" Anna stood up and walked to the mantelpiece where she kept a photograph of Tom. She placed the ring carefully beside it, a place of honor but no longer on her hand. "I've decided that loving you doesn't mean I loved him any less," Anna said, turning back to face Jake. "And I've decided that I'm tired of being afraid of what people might think." Jake stood up slowly, hope dawning in his eyes. "Anna." "I love you, Jake Thompson," Anna said, the words feeling both terrifying and liberating. "I love your kindness and your strength and the way you make me feel alive again. I love that you understood my grief without trying to fix it, and I love that you came back when I needed you most." Jake crossed the room in 3 quick strides and pulled Anna into his arms. "I love you too, Anna, more than I thought I'd ever love anyone again." He kissed her then, deep and sweet and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. "So what happens now?" Anna asked. "Now we build a life together," Jake said simply. "We work this ranch and take care of each other and see what the future brings." Anna smiled, feeling lighter than she had in years. "What about your wandering days? Don't you want to see what's over the next hill?" Jake looked around the cabin at the life Anna had built with Tom and was now choosing to share with him. "I've been looking for home my whole adult life. Turns out it wasn't a place at all, it was you." Anna felt her heart swell with happiness. "Are you asking me to marry you, Jake Thompson?" "I'm asking you to let me stay," Jake said. "To let me love you and help you run this ranch and maybe, if we're lucky, grow old together right here." Anna thought about Tom, about the dreams she'd shared with him and the love they'd built together. Then she thought about Jake, about the new dreams they could build, and the love that was growing between them. Tom would want her to choose love. He would want her to choose life. "Yes," Anna whispered. "Yes to all of it." As Jake spun her around the cabin, Anna caught sight of Tom's photograph on the mantelpiece. For just a moment, she could swear she saw him smile. Spring had come at last, bringing new life to the land and new love to Anna's heart. The future stretched out before them like the wide Montana sky, full of possibilities and bright with promise. Anna had learned that the human heart was big enough to hold both grief and joy, both memory and hope. Tom would always be part of her story, but Jake was her new chapter. And it was going to be a beautiful one.